Now, it's not going to come as a surprise to any of you that Scientology goes after its critics and goes after anyone that it perceives to be an enemy. Every now and then the question will come up, how is Scientology any worse than, insert the name of some other religious organization? There's a lot of discussion and arguments that could be made on the subject of which organization is worse, which organization has hurt a greater number of people. After all, Scientology is a very small cult, always has been. There's only about 20 to 30,000 Scientologists in the entire world. But I'll tell you one way in which Scientology is different than these other organizations that anybody could name, is that Scientology has a department of staff dedicated to trying to destroy critics. Everything we're going to discuss in this video is from the same blog post. Let's read a little bit about Paulette Cooper, a journalist who published some critical information about Scientology and became one of Scientology's #1 enemies. It says, in the spring of 1976, 6 separate schemes were devised with the express purpose, quote, to get Paulette Cooper incarcerated in a mental institution or jail, or at least to hit her so hard that she drops her attacks. This was from an operation. It's called Operation FREAKOUT. And the information that we're reading from here is from it's from documents taken from an actual prosecution against Scientology by the government, which is why the Scientologists here are referred to as defendants. The stated purpose of Operation Freakout was to remove Paulette Cooper from her position of power so that she cannot attack Scientology. Also, defendant Herman's proposals in this document, blah, blah, blah. The 6 separate schemes were jointly entitled Operation Freakout. In its initial form, Operation Freakout had 3 different plans. The first required a woman to imitate Paulette Cooper's voice and make telephone threats to Arab consulates in New York. The second scheme involved mailing a threatened letter to an Arab consulate in such a fashion that it would appear to have been done by Paulette Cooper. Guys, real quick, normally in Scientology, field staff member or FSM refers to a Scientologist that makes money bringing new people into Scientology. In these documents, the Office of Special Affairs uses the term FSM or field staff member to refer to a Scientologist that is acting as an OSA agent. It's a little confusing if you're already familiar with Scientology, but I just wanted to explain that. The third scheme was that a Scientology field staff member, I'm just going to call it a Scientology agent, was to impersonate Paulette Cooper at a laundromat and threaten the president and the then Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger. A second Scientologist would thereafter advise the FBI of the threat. The fourth plan called for a Scientology agent who had ingratiated themselves with Paulette Cooper to gather information from Paulette Cooper so Scientology could assess the success of the first 3 plans. The fifth plan was for a Scientologist to warn an Arab consulate by telephone that Paulette Cooper had been talking about bombing them. The sixth and final part of Operation Freakout was to obtain Paulette Cooper's fingerprints on a blank piece of paper, type a threatening letter to Henry Kissinger on that paper, and mail it. Paulette Cooper was indicted and standing trial for these framed crimes until these documents came to light following the FBI raid on Scientology in 1977. For anyone who is not already familiar with Paulette Cooper or what Scientology did to try to destroy this woman's life, that information would be shocking. This is an organization that was subsequently given its tax-exempt status back in 1993 by the IRS. Okay, so now I ask you, any of the other major religious or organizations or entities that you might think of when people go, well, how come you're talking about Scientology? How's Scientology any worse than this organization or that organization? Abuse has occurred in every major organization that exists. Do any of the world's major religions have an intelligence and dirty tricks department tasked with framing critics for crimes for which they could be imprisoned? I ask you. I don't think so, but what do I know, guys? I grew up in a cult.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.